Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Just a Friendly Conversation. Today's topic is going to be the latest tech news, or I guess semi-latest. One of our topics happened back in May. I'm here with my former roommate from freshman year, Stetson Doggett. He has his own YouTube channel. If you just look up Stetson Doggett on YouTube or Stets Dog, you'll find his channel. He talks all about cell phone plans. Highly recommend you go see that. He's a very good friend of mine, and I'm excited to be talking a lot about this stuff. You know, when I first got into college, I didn't know much about anything other than what my iPhone was telling me. Stetson helped educate me a little bit on that, and still does. So that's why what I hope to talk about today. Stetson, what's going on?
Hey, Jesse, thank you very much for having me on the show this evening.
No problem. My pleasure. I always like talking to you, Stetson. So, without further ado, let's get started. So on around May 8th to May 10th, Google I/O happened. I didn't pay much attention to it, but Stetson, you were telling me all about it before we started recording. So what's going on with that, man?
Yeah, so Google I/O is Google's yearly event where they announce the latest and greatest in Android and what they're developing behind the scenes. And this year was no exception from Google I/O. We saw a lot of really exciting announcements from Google. They previewed Android P and a lot of the new features coming to that. They talked about Google Duplex. They talked about a lot of the exciting developments happening with things as simple as Gmail. They're going to be making our lives better in so many different ways. And I thought the announcement as a whole was just very exciting for Google users and for businesses.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Stetson, I remember coming in as a freshman, you were all for Apple. You know, you had the MacBook, iPhone, and everything. And then middle of the year, you got a Google Pixel, and you even managed to convert me a little bit to it. So tell me, are you hopeful that about the new stuff that's coming out? You're pretty happy and satisfied?
Well, Jesse, for me, smartphones is they're an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
I don't have women problems. I'm single. I have smartphone troubles. When I was watching Google I/O, Jesse, I wanted to take my iPhone and throw it against the wall. I was just absolutely blown away with what Google was offering and just felt so frustrated with the lackluster products that Apple has been putting out, specifically in the software department.
Yeah,
So
we're not innovating. It's not innovating as much anymore, you know. But when I look at a Pixel, it seems to be so much more different. Or any Android device, it's why I was tempted to get one myself. If my family wasn't so washed with Apple products. So tell me, what's one highlight from Google I/O that you really want to talk about?
So for me, the biggest highlight is definitely with Android P. We don't know what the P stands for. There have been some rumors about peppermint or like pumpkin bread. Yeah, it's typically a dessert. We don't know what it stands for. But what really stood out for me was the assistance Google and attention Google is giving sort of smartphone addiction. They're kind of recognizing it as a real problem, and they've implemented some incredible tools to help users sort of balance their smartphone relationship.
That's actually quite interesting coming from someone that manufactures cell phones and would benefit off of people looking at their phones for much longer. Hopefully that this kind of thing could give Apple a little kick in the butt to start, competing again, if you know what I mean. I feel like for a little patch of time, it was flatlining in the tech department and just innovation department, rather, where you weren't seeing as many new cool things. As more of just reusing things that people would be like, oh, dude, that's super cool. I could show it to my friends if I have the new phone, but that's about it. I wouldn't use it in my daily life.
Right.
So
right.
I'm hoping that it shifts more into that direction. Well, with that being said, iOS 12 is coming out very soon, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so iOS 12, very, very interesting announcement from Apple. Some people very excited, some people a little disappointed. I thought it reflected a lot of what Google announced at their I/O event. And for iPhone users, it's definitely going to be a wonderful upgrade. The public beta is available now if you are interested in joining that, testing it out. Definitely not recommended for more casual users. The public release will be coming this fall. So that would be the time to really try it out. But again, very, very interesting announcement and very similar to Google I/O. Again, Apple put a lot of attention on device usage and how users are interacting with their devices. So just to kind of give a recap of some of the features, with Android P at Google I/O, Google announced a dashboard which gives you an overview how much time you are spending within each application, whether it's Netflix, YouTube, those social media apps we all spend way too much time on. You can set app timers, which can be helpful reminders on how much time you want to spend using a certain app, or they could just get annoying, up to you. And they have a really cool wind down mode where not only will your phone go into do not disturb, so it'll block incoming notifications, kind of allow you to relax into the evening, this screen will also shift to a more amber color, which reduces blue light, and now it will fade to a two-tone black and white display, which Google claims is less addictive than the vibrant color display on so many OLED panels. Now, on Apple's side of things, just to keep going here, they introduced what they're calling screen time, which mirrors very closely these features. Again, you can see how much time you're spending using each application. You can set time limits. You get reminders to go outside, take a break. And again, similar to the wind down mode on Android, iPhone will now be totally silenced throughout the night. And so let's say you want to check the time at 2 a.m. Instead of seeing the 20 different emails and text messages you need to respond to, it'll just be a blank screen during the middle of the night, and those notifications will appear when you wake up in the morning.
Wow. Okay. So both seem pretty interesting. Like you said, they do certainly mirror each other right now. What really intrigued me about what you said was the black and white setting. What are your opinions on that? Now, is it a soft black and white, or am I going to have heavy contrast between the two?
So what's happening is the colors are fading to a black and white two-tone display. Nothing is happening contrast-wise. I think the biggest thing is the phone just gets a little bit more difficult to use. You can actually try this on your iPhone if you wanted to, and turn the display colors into black and white using display accessibility. Is the phone usable? Yes. Is it enjoyable? I think it's a lot less enjoyable. I really do enjoy the colors on my display, which I think is perfect when you're trying to wind down and go to bed. So I think it's a great feature. I would have loved to see the option on iPhone, but I think both companies are doing the right thing and keeping the user in mind with these features.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually really nice that they're doing this in the first place. It's almost like those angry grandparents that go like, darn whippersnappers are always on their phones all the time. It's kind of like they had a little bit of a say in what they were in this decision. I love the feature that it counts how many hours you spend in each app, simply because I know for a fact I would get very depressed over that, and very upset with myself after seeing, getting very little sleep and checking my phone and be like, oh yeah, that's why I didn't get any sleep last night. What's one thing from, let's say, Google I/O that you disliked?
So I guess I'm not going to say I disliked it, but one of the more controversial features is Google announced something called Google Duplex. This is a powerful new integration with Google Assistant where you can say, okay, Google, schedule a haircut for me next Monday between 10 a.m. and noon. And what will happen is Google Assistant will place a real phone call to a local hairstylist or barbershop, talk on the phone with a real person, and schedule you your haircut appointment. So this raised a lot of ethical controversy. Why? On the one hand, does the human picking up the phone have a right to know they're speaking to a robot? And this is a very convincing robot. If you didn't know, it could easily fool me. I would believe it was a human. Google did a great job of that. So that's kind of the unnerving part. Like we're taking out human to human interaction. but no one would really know because it sounds like a human. But on the flip side, this is great for businesses because it's allowing more people to more easily schedule appointments and enjoy services that businesses are offering. Another example Google gave was scheduling a dinner appointment at a restaurant, making that reservation. And the last example, which was huge in my opinion, is, Jesse, when there's a snowstorm, right, or there's a holiday and some of your favorite stores are closed, but you don't know what their hours are. Like, you think they're open, but you're not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with Google Duplex, Google will make one automated phone call. Someone will pick up, will just give Google the store hours. Google will be able to update their website, update their live search results. So now anytime any one of the millions of people types in that place, the hours will be correct and updated for that holiday time. So instead of getting millions of people all trying to call and figure out what the hours are, you get one automated call, the information is updated across the web, and it avoids a lot of confusion.
So that's actually pretty incredible. I don't know how I still feel about that, because I feel like while it could be efficient for some people, I feel like at the same time it's a lot. Especially since it's just a phone call.
Right.
I feel like there could be some potential issues, maybe even with stores giving... You don't want Google to update their site with incorrect information for future people. And I guess they just have to make sure that, there's some security with that and there's some assurance to what kind of data they're pulling from each phone call.
Right.
But that does sound quite interesting. What is your... And okay, to be fair, I'm gonna have the same question. What's a feature? Actually, no. Let's start with this since we're on the topic of Android. What's a feature from the new what is it? The new Android update, or I guess OS. What's something you dislike about that update?
What is something I dislike about the update? I think for Android P, the most curious thing are actually the design changes. I think it's going to be kind of a mixed reaction for people. I think some people will love the fresh new coat of paint that Android is getting, how the buttons are being styled slightly differently, how splashes of color are finding themselves in different parts of the operating system. And I think for other people, they're just going to miss that familiar experience that we currently have with Android on Android Oreo. So, I think I'm up for change. I'm open to change. But it's definitely interesting, some of the design changes we're seeing with Android P throughout the operating system, and things like the quick settings, the quick reply system, and just some other operating system things. A big change, for example, would be just they're adding gesture support. And this is very similar to iPhone 10. Apple absolutely killed it. iPhone 10, the animations are perfect. They're smooth. You don't even miss the home button. I think on Android, it's going to be crucial Google gets the physics and the mechanics of these new gestures down to provide a similarly smooth experience.
So, you're always so positive, Stetson. But let's turn that question over to Apple now. Like, what's something... you're not necessarily you think is at most like a questionable decision by Apple of iOS 12. It can even include something like choosing not to include something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so with Apple, I think their weakest point has been Siri, and I made a video actually the day of the keynote, and it was the biggest Siri fails, right? And I did a quick comparison of some common questions that I had been asking Siri, and I compared that with Google Assistant. One was, I'm learning how to cook. I'm going to be completely honest here, total novice. I was grilling a chicken, and everything seemed to be going smoothly, but I just wasn't sure how long I should keep it on the grill for. I asked Siri. She gave me restaurants. I asked Google, and Google said 6 to 8 minutes. So I think with iOS 12, Apple is making huge improvements to Siri. Users are going to be able to do something called creating shortcuts, which is basically you can create custom Siri commands to do things. So you can say, hey Siri, it's party time, for example, and your Philips Hue lights could start doing a certain scene, and then a certain song could start playing on your speakers. So that will be very cool and very powerful. But again, just in those everyday questions, I think Siri could use a lot of improvement, a lot of love, and a lot of attention. It's not on the same level as Google Assistant, and that is probably one of the most compelling reasons I've been leaning towards Android and considering Android over iOS.
I will tell you this: the only time I use Siri is to basically text my friends when my hands are messy. When you lent me your Pixel for a week 2 years ago, and I remember using Google Assistant much more for everything. And it's just so much more smooth when I'm talking to it. I actually can talk to it more naturally than I can with Siri. It's like with Siri, I have to be very, very punctual, like oh, look at that, I activated her. It could be very, very, I have to be very specific. I have to spell my sentences out correctly. Even when I'm texting people, like with, when I want things to have certain kinds of punctuation, it gets complicated too. So definitely Google has the edge on that one. I'm with you right there. I kind of just wish, like, Siri was cool when it first came out. Now it's kind of just, are you going to improve it, or are you just going to change design a little bit and leave it as is?
Right. And, for me, honestly, when I use Siri, I just get frustrated.
Yeah.
It doesn't do what I want it to do. And then when I use Google Assistant, it is just such a beautiful, magical experience. Google, it has context awareness, so you can have the questions sort of build off of each other, ask about your favorite football player, and then without repeating the football player's name, ask what his record was for the season, or how tall is he, or how much does he weigh, stuff like that. And, that's something Siri could really use some improvements on.
I will, sorry, what were you saying?
I just think... Apple does a great job respecting user privacy, and that's definitely something to be valued and cherished. But in terms of improving a feature and service, sometimes being able to collect a lot of user data can definitely help accelerate that. And I think that's what we're seeing with Google right now.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny where we're stuck into that. I won't dive too much into that right now because I think that's a topic for another episode about user privacy. People want cooler features but don't want to give up privacy, so it's kind of a contradicting statement, right? And it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And I will end with this story. I remember coming into your window was right on the first floor this year, so when I walked by your window, I once said, "Okay, Google, turn off the lights and actually listen to me." Granted, I had something in my throat at the time, so I don't know. I guess I sounded like you, but it actually turned your lights off, which is something that I always remember. And you had this puzzled look on your face.
That is crazy. Wondering about that for years, keeping me up at night.
Moving on to something that I remember we just did research on it to make sure we were getting it right, and I think we're more confused than we initially were. I don't even know how to pronounce it correctly, but the Microsoft Andromeda. Now, this was actually released as of July 9th, 2018. The Forbes just published something about this, I think 3 or 4 hours ago, actually, about the latest the article's called "Latest Microsoft Leak Suggests Revolutionary Surface Andromeda Canceled." Now, I don't know why it used revolutionary on it, because when I see it, I don't see much things that are revolutionary about it other than maybe a cool bendable screen. So there's rumor that it could be canceled, and we could talk about that, but I also just want to talk about what this thing actually is, because it just looks so this project looks like, okay, if you're going to do something like this, my opinion is you can go ahead and try it and be innovative. You already made the Windows Phone, so you hit rock bottom. Let's see what you can do from there. So if you want to make it, go ahead. But this just looks so disorganized, and nobody knows what's going on. Granted, it was probably very early on in development or whatever, But like according to Forbes, like they didn't even know what they were gonna build their own OS, which you run into problems with third-party apps when you're doing stuff like that. It's hardware within it, a Snapdragon 800 processor, 1440 by 1080 touchscreen, 1 gigabyte of RAM, and only 32 gigs of storage. All of that stuff, and they're calling it. At first, I was like, "Oh, is this a phone-tablet hybrid?" That seems pretty dumb. No, it's another tablet-computer hybrid that fits in your pocket, I believe is what they're trying to advertise it as. Stetson, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, Jesse, I think we better take a moment to describe this device to our listeners right now. Basically, imagine your phone, right? And imagine a book that is about the same size as your phone. And you can open a book, right? So it folds. This is a little bit different. It's like the screen. I'm looking at these renders right now, and to me it looks like it's a screen on both the backs, or maybe it's two screens that are sandwiched together. Basically, you have a device. I'm going to describe it like a Nintendo 3DS. I think that's the best. Nintendo 3DS, all screens on both sides of the device, and then it just opens up so you can kind of get a phone experience if you were to fold the screen behind itself, or a tablet experience if you were to leave both of them open. Just usability-wise, it seems confusing. The form factor seems confusing. It's got an 8-inch display. I really don't know where Microsoft is going with this. And to be honest, I'm almost thankful this is a rumor, because I'm not sure where this would fit in the market right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen. I don't know why they're trying to make I understand the phone computer hybrid called the tablet. Obviously, I understand that, and that's awesome that they did that, because that honestly was such a great invention. And I use this really old iPad, and I still use it. It's nice. I don't understand why we needed a tablet computer hybrid. It's almost like it just doesn't. I feel like something that the resources that could be put somewhere else. Again, though, if you're going to release something like this, that's by all means, you could prove me wrong, and this thing could be awesome, right? But it just looks so confusing. The specs in it lead for me to believe that I should just get a phone anyways. Because,
Jesse, let's take a moment to talk about these specifications, all right?
Yeah.
So it's a Snapdragon 800 processor. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a huge knowledge nerd on Snapdragon processors. But to put this into perspective, I looked it up, Snapdragon 800 processor on the Qualcomm website. We're looking at a CPU clock speed of 2.3 gigahertz. That seems pretty good. Yeah. Quad-core CPU. What gets me here is 32-bit architecture, all right? This is ancient. We've had 64-bit phones since iPhone 5S came out.
Wow.
I do not know why Microsoft would be considering a 32-bit CPU in this device. And also, one of the newer smartphones that have just come out, the OnePlus 6, that's using the Snapdragon 845. So 800 to 845, we've seen a lot of evolutions and new devices from Snapdragon. The 800 just seems like an older processor, and I question why Microsoft would throw it in there. Not to mention 1 gig of RAM and only 32 gigs of internal storage. This is just becoming more and more confusing, with both an absurd form factor and lower quality specs. I do not know who the intended audience for this device is.
Exactly. Maybe people who are just like you and me are into this kind of the latest gadgets and everything. But it looks, I'm looking at pictures. Granted, these are images produced by some artist, and apparently they do match what they're supposed to look like. Here's my thing. It looks too small for me to put on my lap. It looks like something I would put in my pocket, but at that point, wouldn't I just want a smartphone? I don't understand. It's like almost like they're trying to compete with themselves too, because you have the Surface coming out, and the Surface is an incredible piece of technology, and it's something that I'm very happy to see have improved. The first one was okay, and then it only got better from there. It's putting in some great new tech. They're keeping up to date. Let's just say they're maximizing their potential in the Surface right now. What they can fit into a tab that they're trying to do. They're like downgrading this thing, and at this point, it's like, no, I'm either gonna buy a phone or I'm gonna have a tablet. I don't want both in one device. It just looks confusing. It's like two parts. Like you guys,
Jesse, they're trying to enter. First of all, they're trying to enter a product category that doesn't exist and no one wants. The in between phone and tablet category. What? No. All right, you can have a phablet, and those are fine, right? Phones with large displays, people love.
Yeah.
iPhone 8 Plus, Samsung Galaxy Note. Those are great phones. People love those. Microsoft, the phones have already failed, so this device category is fitting into something that has already failed. And in terms of tablets, right, you either have an iPad or you don't have a tablet. Like, Apple is dominating the tablet market space right now, so I really any chance competing there. And like you were saying, I really think Microsoft's best products are, I'm just going to be honest, I think their Xbox, that is the only Microsoft product that I personally would like to purchase. But I think their strongest product category is their Surface laptops. I think these are doing a great job kind of bridging the gap between a tablet and a touchscreen experience and providing a more powerful desktop experience on the go. So I think that's their strength. I think it's competing well with iPad. I think Apple could definitely be improving their iPad experience. But yeah, this device, this rumored device, seems very confusing. And I'm not surprised that it's rumored to be canceled.
Yeah, it just
because,
like you said, everything you want to create. If they wanted to create their own category, I'm not suggesting against it. I'm all for innovation, but you need to decide your audience. What made the Surface so great is its audience was college students, and that's what made it fantastic, and it works. College students are always going to get it, just like college students get MacBooks too. But like my issue with this is that it doesn't seem like I have a great audience, and it's canceled before anyone knew much about it, which I guess is good. I mean, I had the joke to you. I mean, if a device is canceled and nobody knew it existed, was it really a device in the first place?
Right.
It seems like, and Microsoft had a lot of power changes right now, and I imagine this is kind of the result of it. Just an idea that wasn't fertilized and wasn't cared for enough. And when when someone who leaked it got their hands on it, it just comes out as this jumbled kind of brainstorming thing. This could have potential to be something cool, but like it's just not heading in the right direction. Again, I think that's just due to the shaky leadership. Unfortunately, Stetson, that's about as much as we could talk about this Android media. As much as you and I like to kind of rip this thing to shreds, let's just be happy and hope those rumors are true that it's canceled. If not, let's hope that it improves on it a little bit. I want to thank you so much for talking to me about this stuff. I actually learned a lot about it. I might have to go check out Google I/O now and see what's going on. Thank you again for being on the show. If you guys want to check him out, again, he's on YouTube, Stetson Doggett. Talks about cell phones and cell phone plans. So someone absolutely fantastic to have on the show. His channel will be in the description. Stetson, thanks, and I hope we could do this again.
Yeah, Jesse, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was great talking. I want to let your listeners know they can watch the full recaps of Google I/O and Apple's WWDC events online. You can follow the latest and greatest news in both Android and iOS developments. The Microsoft leaks we saw, of course, that may or may not be happening, but that was kind of a fun device to look into. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. Again, I am on YouTube. If you're interested, youtube.com/Stetson Doggett. And yeah, Jesse, thank you so much for having me on the show this evening.
No problem, man. I hope to have you on again in the future when new news comes out. All right. So if you guys enjoy the episode, definitely hit that subscribe button. Give me a like. It would be much appreciated. And I'll see you guys next time.